If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Elite Publishing Podcast. Everything books, man. We are talking about how to publish, all the things about writing, everything you want to know about publishing. And we have a #1 best-selling author with us today. Patrick Donohue is with us, and he wrote the book Breakout Valuation, and he is a best-selling author. Patrick, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you, Melanie. It's great to be with you and Jen today.
Awesome. Patrick, tell us when you first knew you wanted to write a book. I see you, it's right there on the side of you. I see it right behind you.
Yes. So I've known for probably 20 years that I wanted to write a book. And I've always had the utmost respect for authors and, people who've invested in, putting their passion and their life's work into writing. And so I think I've known it for a long time. I've done little pieces and, like a lot of people, blogging and so on and so forth. But it was about 5 years ago that I finally started to, set some goals to ultimately write a book. And so it's fun to be on the other side of it.
And what's cool is your business is finance, and you wrote a book that supports that. Tell us what's happened because of your book for your business and your brand, your personal brand.
Well, it's often used term, but a lot of people say, a book is a business card these days, and that's absolutely true. Why it's been very important to us and my company, Hill Capital Corporation, is that it allows us to build relationships quicker and build rapport and trust, which is key in any business, but especially finance. To be able to enter into new markets. And so I'm located in Minneapolis. I have a lot of strong relationships in the great northern region. But when I want to, go and meet new people in Los Angeles or New York or Naples, Florida, having a book and being able to demonstrate to people, expertise in an area is really helpful to open doors.
Yeah. Let's dive into how you wrote the book. So a lot of people have different processes of how they write, whether they talk the book or write it longhand on paper or type it. How did you write your book, and what was your writing process?
My writing process really started with an outline. And thankfully, I know some people that wrote a book and was given good advice on the front end. But as we all know, getting good advice and following it is two different things. And so when I utilized that outline, it was hugely beneficial to really think about, like, okay, what are the topics that I want to cover? What is a hook and introduction? What is the stories and the content within each chapter? And what does that look like? That worked really well. What didn't work well was I would have shots of inspiration. I'd have a few cups of coffee in the morning and start typing and try to type up like a whole section of the book. Those were the things that really led me astray, because those were the hardest parts to like edit out, and I wanted to like shuffle that content in. So sticking to a process around an outline and to really be thoughtful about the framework and the structure of the entire book was what really worked the best for me.
Yeah, we tell our authors to have a theme that runs through the book, whether it's like, so each chapter, it has to be like yours is about how to get your company ready for sale and finance it right. And that each chapter needs to address that. You don't go off like, oh, squirrel, I'm going to talk about something else.
Well, it's easy to do for us entrepreneurs, right? It's like shiny object. There it is. Yeah.
And the other thing we tell our authors, and every author is a little bit different, because we do a VIP day to help them get their book structured and create about 10,000 words in a day, but it's to have a structure for each chapter. So then, okay, I'm starting with the story, then I'm going to give an example, then I'm giving data, and every author's structure is a little different depending on their book. So I think you really hit the nail on the head by saying, have that go through and have that structure.
Well, and that's why experts like you guys are invaluable. The one thing I would say, it is so important to have a coach, a consultant, an agency, a firm, whatever it is. It's so important to have someone come along the ride and to help with that, because it just, I spun my wheels quite a bit when I was left on my own. And
Yeah.
so having, you guys alongside is super important for authors.
Yeah. Now, how did you go about publishing your book? Did you get a traditional publisher, a hybrid publisher, or how did that process go?
I actually knew that I wanted to self-publish. I know several people that have published books with, Wiley and kind of the big names. And I know people that had self-published, and I listened to a lot of podcasts. I knew I had wanted to self-publish. And so that's the route I went down. So I never bothered or worried about, trying to get a traditional publisher or contract or any of that type of stuff. And so I'm very happy I did. And so I wanted to kind of control my process and be able to really control my content for whatever it may look like long term.
So knowing what you know now that you've been through it, what are the things you should tell someone to look for when they're searching for a publisher? Things that were important to you that went right and maybe things that went wrong?
Well, I, like most people, just use word of mouth. So I end up working with some people that another entrepreneur that I know worked with. And so that was kind of my, a lot of trust there to jump off and to do that. So that worked okay, it worked well, but it had some of its downfalls. What I would recommend is for people to run a bit of a process to understand what it is they're looking to accomplish and understand, and then to take the time to get to know, various, companies and people that can help them in the process and find the right relationships. Because I didn't do that, and I would have probably benefited having understood at a minimum the landscape a little better before I just dove in head first. So I liken it to a lot of times I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and they ask us for referrals for like attorneys and accountants all the time. And it's the same thing there. I say, look, at a lot of times people can give you, very similar things when it comes to like legal advice. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the working relationship. Like, who are you going to be fired up, sitting down with and working with? Because that's what's going to matter at the end of the day.
I think that's really good. So you self-published. What kind of, was there any like, you know, did you reach any hurdles, or was there things that you had to redo, or any problems that happened during it? Like that you could
There was. And, I work full time. I'm not a professional author. There was never a grandiose idea that I was gonna, make my living off of, writing and selling books. It was really to get a lot of my knowledge around finance out into the world. So all that being said, it's being able to balance the time to be able to write and to be able to execute. And so that's where a lot of thought went into, like, how to manage that whole process and to be able to be, successful in the process, and, what is the real end result that I'm looking for. And then the biggest thing, the challenge was the time, and all of a sudden you would go into these periods where work would be busy and wouldn't touch this for many weeks, and then it's hard to replug back in. So I'm a big fan. I know a lot of people, you guys have talked a lot about this, but being methodical and consistent on chipping away over time and being able to do that, and that's hugely valuable. So that's what didn't work, but then what does work is the accountability mechanism. So that's why having, a partner, a coach, a company that can help you along, and to say, we're going to have a weekly check-in or whatever the case may be to see how this is going. Because if I didn't have that, especially at the end where it was like I was starting to run up against deadlines, or I would frankly had to have paid a lot more money to continue to get help, it forced me to get the thing over the goal line. So that was helpful.
Love that. The pain. There's
Yeah.
pain on the other side if I don't get it done. So
Yes, yeah, and that's needed, because otherwise it would just sit out there. It still would be.
and I always love to give a little coaching. You and I, we talked earlier in the green room, so to speak, that, your book did hit #1 bestseller. So we love that. And so we said, what really should happen next from because you published with someone else, is they should put #1 bestseller on the cover of your book and update that on Amazon, as well as put it in the book description. And then I just noticed something else that we always tell our authors when we work with them. In the beginning of your book, as I'm looking at the preview of your book, you should have a call to action in the beginning of your book. So the call to action can be to give away something free. Maybe they opt in, something that they opt in, so you can capture their information, because you don't know who bought your book from Amazon. They don't give you that information.
No, They don't.
or from anywhere
Well,
else, right? Even if from Walmart, you don't know. But if someone is
yes,
looking at your book to see if they want it, they're going to go, oh, well, let me check out his little freebie. Maybe I'll sign up for that. I don't have to pay
exactly.
for anything. Now you've got their email, their name, and you can retarget them because you know they're interested in your product or your services. So people say, oh, well, I put it in, but I put it in at the end of my book. I'm like, well, they might not see it there. You get a whole nother
Yeah,
audience
that's
at the
extremely
beginning.
valuable. Yeah, no, that's extremely valuable because
Yeah.
that is absolutely spot on.
Well, people don't realize on Amazon, it used to say look inside the book, but now they've changed it to say read a sample. But
Yep.
either way, when you're clicking on the button, it's opening up the front cover, it's opening up the copyright page, the first usually 10 to 15 pages, maybe shorter
Mhm.
than that, depending on how many pages you have. But you'll have that sample they can read. And if it's the first page, even before the table of contents, then it's really easy for them to just grab the link and go there. Or you can even do a QR code, and the QR code they
I
can
love
scan
that.
it and it goes straight on, because most people have their phone anyway with them, so they can
Mhm.
Right.
scan it. If they're on the phone, I just found out this the other day, if the QR code is clickable, so in your PDF you have to make it clickable. There's a lot of technical around it, but anyway,
Yeah.
if they're on their phone, I don't know if it'll work from Amazon, but you can click on QR codes too, and it should take you there. So it might not because of in the sample, but when you buy the book, you'll be able to, if that makes
Yep.
sense.
Oh, very much
Because
so.
Amazon might not let you on their website, but when it's downloaded on Kindle and they click it, it will go to the website.
Right. And in a lot of authors, in business authors, like me, are really doing this to be able to hand this book to somebody when I'm
Uh-huh.
speaking at a conference or whatever,
Yeah.
because it's not so much the money of selling the book. That's great, that's gravy, but a lot of times I'm handing this to people, and that's a great point because it'd be nice to have that be easy to be able to,
Uh-huh.
I don't have anything in here, but have a nice little piece in here that's click into the website and so forth, and get the spreadsheets that come with breakout valuation. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
most of the time they're looking at the first couple pages of your book in the table of contents. So we like to put it either right before or right after the table of contents. So they're going to see it right away. The other thing I noticed too is it's great you have an Amazon author page, which is like a kind of like a Facebook page for an author, but you can just put your bio there now. But what we like to do in the bio is you should also have links there. Put your website
okay.
link there, put your social media links there, put your link to your free giveaway should go there. So use that also as a sales page. So remember, your book is really your business. So just another tip for you as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is excellent.
And
Yeah,
Amazon's changing all the time. So I noticed the last author page I did, they didn't let me do HTTP or www. So don't put
okay.
those words in there. Just put the .com, or even just say visit my website and put if it doesn't let you. Like you'll have to play with it to see if it will work. But it's really
Okay.
good to have the links there. I was going to
That is
say,
great.
Patrick, you're fortunate that you self-published, because now you can go and update your interior of your book file. Where if you were a hybrid publisher or traditional publisher, they'd be like, no, we already did the final, there's no changes. So
Right.
now that you self-published, it's easy for them to go and update that book cover and update an interior file and have that QR code in the front.
Right. And that's always been a big goal of mine. This book, turned out to be way bigger than I had imagined, which is
Yeah.
nice because it's like a real book, which
It has
always
the thud factor. That's what we like to say.
it has a thud. But one of the goals I've always had was to take like the content that really resonated with people, because entrepreneurs are just like super busy, but then like distill down and do a shorter book that's more
Yeah.
punchy for on the go entrepreneurs, where it's like under 100 pages and they can kind of get the stuff that they need instead of like having to cut through 280 pages.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a tip that we offer is to do a summary book. So it's
Oh,
the same book, but it's a summary. So
okay.
it's like the
Oh, I
Cliff
like that.
Notes.
Yeah.
So like we can do that for you. You take the book, just pour it down. You could probably put it even into Chat GPT and say, give me a summary of my book, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
then it's done, and then just republish it along with it. So you have a similar cover and it's just
Yep.
named the summary of it. And then all of a sudden you have two books on Amazon, which Amazon likes that as well. So
Right.
I would do that instead of having to micro down and you having to edit. Like that's a lot more time consuming versus just doing a summary of it.
Yeah. I love that. That is awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
So, well, we want to thank you for being here. We hope we were helpful for you and you inspired some authors for us today, gave them some tips of what they should be doing and helping to write their
Well,
books as well.
Yeah, it's awfully generous of you guys to do this and to put this out there. People are going to learn a lot. I did. I think I learned more than probably a lot of your audience will. So this is great.
We've had people tell us, I learned more from you in 15 minutes than I did 2 years working with my publisher.
Yep.
So we always love, that's what we're here to give value and teach. And hopefully if you're our client, then maybe you'll work with us as well. So if you're interested in working with us, reach out to us at eliteonlinepublishing.com. We work with business owners, entrepreneurs, people who want to develop their personal brand all the time. Hit the author submission button and we look forward to hearing from you, or check us out, our regular podcast and Elite Online Publishing. And we have a YouTube channel that has a ton of information, Elite Online Publishing on YouTube. We'll see you next time. Have a great week, everybody.
We'll see you next time, and check out the show notes for the links for Patrick's book as well. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Melanie.
If you want to write a book and become a best-selling author, you're in the right place. At Elite Online Publishing, we can help you create, publish, and market your book so that it becomes a #1 bestseller. We work with a limited number of authors to ensure that they receive the best possible service. So if you want to learn how to write and publish a book that will empower you to smartly grow your brand, business, and credibility, apply today. We look forward to working with you.